really bright.
And then live. Okay, switch over. Let's go to Facebook. Here we go. All right, so now I'm recording it on my Zoom too, so hopefully that'll work. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna jump on, I think, talking with my guest about teen brain cancer to foster parenting. And I'll tag you and everything on this in a sec. Okay. Are you
and it's 30 minutes or was it 45?
But it kind of takes on a life of its own.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't see you anymore.
Oh. Well, mine shows that I am being videoed and recording and.
Well, let's see what happens when we go live. Hold on. Here goes nothing. If not, we'll hop back on. Nope, it's just me. I don't see you. Okay.
Yeah, mine says meeting is now streaming live.
No, but I don't see you on there. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me go to the view gallery. There we go. That's why. Okay. All right. Let's go more. Stop live stream. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Here we go. Live on Facebook. Hold on. News feed. This is why we got to get on it ahead of time because I never know what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, so C.R.O.W. Are you there?
I'm here.
Effect with A.P.R.I.L. Oh, gosh. Talking to my guest about teen brain cancer to foster parent. Okay, only me. I want to go public. There we go. Oh gosh, let's see. Are we? Oh, there we are. See how we're dual now? Okay.
Okay.
That's about teen brain cancer to foster parent April Wallen. Going live, baby. Here we go.
Okay. Oh, there we are.
Schedule. So we're good. Here we go. And we are live. Hello, everyone, yes. And welcome to the C.R.O.W.N Effect, Episode 3. I'm your host, Tara Hooper, Mrs. Texas United World 2021, and I am so excited about my next guest, another amazing, beautiful pageant competitor. She's the current Mrs. Lone Star, America's Most Beautiful. I actually was able to witness her being crowned. So that was super exciting for me. This guest I've known actually or competed with for several years off and on in Texas. But the interesting thing is as many times as I've competed with her, I actually don't know her very well. And it isn't until recently that I've had an opportunity to speak more with her and learn about her amazing story. And I'm just going to share a little bit about, this is a lady that every time I saw her name on the pageant roster, I went, oh, there she is. Oh. And don't get me wrong, I love her with all my heart, but I have my own personal hangups. I have my own comparison syndrome, and there on the roster is the beautiful, tall, skinny blonde that I'm always comparing myself to. And so I'm so glad that her and I get to be co-title holders, different systems, but in the same year, because this means that we just get to do a lot of good in the community. And so I'm excited to share her story with you all today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before I introduce her. She's super, super smart. She's got an MBA in project management. She specializes in telecommunication and network engineering in oil fields and oil platforms. So, here she is probably in like combat boots during the day or, work boots during the day and high heels, later on. She is married to her amazing husband named Jared. And she is also a woman after my own heart because she owns April's Dog Boarding. If anyone knows, I have 4 dogs, so that speaks to my heart. And honestly, she said she started competing in pageants to meet other women and make new friends. And I can completely understand that because I've only been here in Texas for 7 years. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Mrs. April. Is it Wallen or Wallen?
It's Wallen.
Thank you. I think I've been screwing that up for years.
It's okay. It's common. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here with you today.
Thank you. Well, of course, a big congratulations goes out to you. I know what my crowning moment was like, but why don't you tell me how it felt for you? Because you kind of have a special story there, right?
It was so exciting for a lot of different reasons. It was really fun and interesting and exciting to be part of a new system. It was the first pageant in Texas and going to nationals. It will be the first nationals. And so that's always exciting, just to be part of this creative process and figuring things out. And the director, Sam Riddle, I just love the pieces. She's so awesome. And I was really looking forward to getting to work with her. And then our title holder, Mrs. Texas, is somebody I go to church with. We met a few years ago when I first moved to Texas. Catherine Hecker is the sweetest person on the planet, and nobody is more deserving of that title, and she will do wonderful with it. But we have been competing and planning. It's like, how can we win together and get to go to nationals together? And it happened. And so we're already planning our Vegas trip.
Hold on, we're having some technical difficulties, so I just want to make sure this is going public. My page, got to tell mom, she wants to. And I love Catherine. And of course I adore you, and I was there to watch both of you win. And I love I too am with a new system. And so I think it's super exciting to be able to start this process and kind of this this branding of a new system and kind of make it your own. Let me tell mom, I started a new interview. And she got it. Okay, got to make sure mom was on, right? I had to make sure she was on because she missed a lot.
I love that.
Hi, mom. We love you. Okay, so I love that we're both into pageantry, but really what drew me to you, April, was the fact that once I kind of got to know you and I started hearing about your story, I really wanted you on my show, The C.R.O.W.N Effect, because for those of you that don't know, C.R.O.W.N Effect is confidence revealed on women now, creating success through self-confidence. And it has been my experience over the last 30 years, not only as a hairstylist, but also as an image consultant and executive coach, that self-confidence is I think, what gives women their strength, or it can absolutely sabotage them beyond belief. And without a good core platform of self-confidence, I really believe that women struggle. But what I found was women's self-confidence gets knocked out from underneath them for a lot of different reasons. And I'll be sharing my reasons next week, but your reasons are very different. And so I want to back up and go back to when you were a teenager and share with our audience your news that you got it.
Sure.
I forget how.
I was 14 when I was diagnosed, but I was actually born with a brain tumor, and we didn't know that. I was sick and had other side effects my entire childhood. My mom kept taking me to doctors, and I was misdiagnosed. I was treated for things I didn't have. And I will say healthcare in Alaska at that time wasn't great. It was just, nobody was recommending MRIs at that point, but it got to a point where I was 13 years old. I was very sick. I was like 50 pounds, and there was something wrong with me. I'd sleep all day, so I was failing in school. And the last doctor we saw said they were telling my mom, it was either in my head or it was in her head. And I took that to heart. I'm like, maybe I'm just making this up. I didn't know what was wrong with me. It was actually, we were going to be moving out of state for my dad's job. And my orthodontist was the first person who said, your jaw isn't growing the way it should. You should get an MRI. And we did. As soon as we got to the Seattle area, we got an MRI. Before I was even dressed, they had told my mom, they're like, hey, we've found this brain tumor. It was crushing part, it completely had crushed my pituitary gland. But I was given a 2-month prognosis, and we had to start finding brain surgeons. The first one we saw, it was a no-go. He was not comfortable operating, and we were really grateful to him for saying that. But it was a matter of finding somebody that had some kind of answer. And all the while, I was actually thrilled that I had an answer finally. The prognosis was terrible, but I was just glad that this wasn't something I was imagining, that I wasn't imagining terrible headaches.
Let me ask you, so not only you're a teenager, which is by far probably the most awkward times in a young person.
Very awkward time.
Oh my gosh, like any of you who have teenage daughters or preteen daughters, we all know, like, this is ridiculous. This is the time. But now you're ill, and the doctor's telling you basically, get over it, it's in your head. How did that make you feel? Like, you're already
it completely crushed me at the time. They thought I was just trying to get attention, which was the last thing I wanted. But what was the hardest for me is I had been a good student, and I did gymnastics growing up. I was very active. And all of a sudden I started getting really sick, and I would sleep all day long, which led to doing no homework. So all of a sudden I go from straight A student that would tutor other kids to I'm failing. And that really hit my self-esteem. I couldn't do sports anymore because I couldn't stay awake for them. And all this time I'm having these chronic headaches that I was in so much pain, and just getting told I'm imagining it. And then that does something to your psyche. I'm like, what if I am imagining it? I'm like, then there's something really wrong with me. And then, and this is such an awkward time. So one of the big triggers, or the obvious thing that was wrong with me, is I stopped growing. The part of the brain that produces growth hormone was crushed earliest. And so everybody's getting taller and developing, and I'm 4'11" and 50 pounds, and I look like I'm 9 years old. Even in my first driver's license picture is just ridiculous. I had to sit on a stack of phone books just to take the test. So it was a lot going on at once. So I was so relieved when there was finally an answer, even if they couldn't fix the tumor. I just was glad that I'm like, oh, okay, I wasn't imagining it. There's something legitimately wrong.
But then you get this, okay, now here's what's wrong. And then you're given like this, I think, from a mother, like, you don't want to hear that your child may only have weeks or months to live, or this might not be survivable. So then now you went from, okay, you're faking it, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You're making this up, to now you may not live to your next birthday. What did that do? I mean, I know you're relieved to find that you're not faking it, but then it's not like you got great news afterwards either. And so how did that?
Well, that part was really hard. I would say, pretty depressed in the couple of years before I was diagnosed, because of the pain that I was in, these terrible headaches, and not doing good in school. And honestly, I had suicidal thoughts. And so I just didn't know. So I guess when I got this news, it was so great that I'm like, okay, there's an answer I could handle. I had the resiliency I knew to handle whatever the outcome was. What I really just needed to know was that I wasn't faking it. I wasn't imagining this. There's something physically happening. And then from there, it was, okay, how am I going to take care of my parents through this? Because I was really worried about them. Yeah. And so we ended up, though, we found a doctor that went through discussing an experimental procedure with us. It had like a 50-50 shot, but I had, 2 months left. So I was all in. I'm like, do whatever you want. Of course, being a 14-year-old girl, I'm like, you can do whatever you want, but you're not shaving my head. um, so I had priorities. But we agreed. I didn't find out or realize till later. They went through some of the side effects of what I would go through in the upcoming weeks, but and everything they talked about that could happen did and more. But I think the doctor didn't want to share too much with me or tell me what it would really be like because it would scare me out of having the procedure. So unbeknownst to me, I'm walking into this procedure thinking I will be in and out of the hospital in a week, no problem, and then I'll be able to start high school, things will be good.
Well, that's youth for you, right? Ignorance.
Yes. Yes. I took around my high school like a blue permission slip, asking for a week off and having my teacher sign it. And it even says like, brain cancer surgery for my reason to be gone. And all of them are looking at me and I had no idea what the issue was at the time. So I was in the hospital though for 6 months the first time. There were so many things that went wrong, and I say side effects, but permanent. Like I ended up with a really rare spinal disease that everybody I know that has had it ends up paralyzed. And I ended up being diabetic, like type 1 diabetic, just because of this. So that has its own thing. And so they had to remove a portion of my brain that controls all of your hormones. And so now I'm being pumped full of hormone medication. And it was just, high school's awkward for most people. It was really awkward for me. And I was in a new place, but I missed my first year and a half of school because of the hospital and then the follow-up doctor appointments.
So what would you, so this is kind of a twofold question. What would you tell a mother who's going through something like this with her child, just some kind of horrendous illness, to kind of, I don't know, keep that hope and that confidence alive? And then what would you tell a young girl or a teenager? What tool or resource, or I don't know, just a bit of advice would you tell a young girl going through something like this to keep her self-confidence and steer away from those, those dark feelings that you said you had?
Well, and I would say what is probably the most helpful, and it could be for a mother or a child going through this. But the two things I think are best are really finding a support group. For a mother, find other parents where their children have been through like terminal diagnoses or not terminal but survived. And then my answer to a lot of things is find a good therapist. I know that that's like taboo, and a lot of the time we don't want to talk about it, but I think it could do wonders. And the same for a kid. What I wish I would have done or somebody would have talked to me about is finding, a support group of other kids that have been through traumatic experiences, and so that there is that light at the end of the tunnel. What kind of compounded this problem was we were new. We were in a new state and didn't have a support network. We had some friends and family out of state, and they were great and supportive, but it kind of felt like me and my parents battling this on our own. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So looking back though, I'm like, I think that is what would have been the most helpful, is just to be around other people that have been through similar experiences and to hear, it was really, really rough. It was hard, and we have survived.
Did they shave
There's
your
power
head?
in that.
Did they ever?
They didn't, and I wish it would have been the situation now where they did. What they did is they cut open my face. Because I had stopped growing, the bones in my skull were soft. They cut open my face and went straight, because the tumor was like right in the middle of my brain. And they went straight through my face to it. And so I was in a coma afterwards, which I'm glad about. I've heard about the swelling in my face, but everybody knew to keep me away from a mirror when I finally did wake up. It was bad. So my face was pretty jacked up. Which is one of the reasons.
Not to like beauty queen, like this, like, I mean, maybe it's a good transition. Like so many people, and this is why I've been inviting my Sash sisters on, is so many people I think look at pageant girls, they're like, oh, it's all been, sunshine and rainbows, and all a bunch of girls prancing around thinking, it's all about, pretty looks and things like that. And my gosh, like my listeners out there, listen, her face was deformed. They surgically went into her face and had to do surgery. And then look at her now. Like, so especially for someone like you, and I also, like, when I deal with other like women who are going through cancer, who went through traditional chemotherapy and radiation, I'll teach classes on, appearance-based classes. And it's not vanity though. That's the thing. Like, you don't walk on a pageant stage going, oh my gosh, this is bad. It's like, no, I survived my face being like completely deformed. And now I've had to rebuild my identity and have the confidence to walk up on a stage and be the best version of myself. And then say, hey, why don't you judge me on it too, by the way?
Yes.
Like, you're kind of glutton for punishment, but
a little bit.
It's the fact that you went from that, like you're telling me, I almost wanted to commit suicide. I was worried about them shaving my head, but instead they went through my face and my skull and like whatever. And I couldn't even look in a mirror because people are thinking I'm going to freak out. So now I can confidently walk on a stage and win the crown, not win the crown. You don't let that judgment define you. You just come back a better version of yourself, and with friendships and connections and a new purpose. And so I always want people to understand like why the pageant community is the way. Like, it takes a lot of grit to get up there, because
it does.
90% of us have some, I'm going to curse here, so if you got kids listening, but we got some shit going on, right? We got some stuff, and it takes a lot, honestly, for us to get on that stage. And we've built this community of women that it's just like no other, I can't even explain it, but anyone who goes in it, they just go, okay, now I get it. And if you listen to April's story, she doesn't walk on that stage without all that stuff that she's gone through before. That's all with you when you're out there.
Oh, for sure. And, something to that effect is I've been asked a lot over the last year, because I've competed more, because I've made so many friends, and this has become such a fun girls' weekend doing pageants. But, I've ended up being runners up, and I, haven't won. And but I've had friends that don't compete, and they're like, are you really okay? Like, they know I'm competitive about things, but I can't help but compare like everything in my head to this awful experience I went through. So in my, like, what's going, I think, through my mind, probably subconsciously, is like, no, I've been through really bad situations. Not winning a pageant or a game or whatever the thing is. I'm like, that's not that bad. That's, I still had a great time. And so it's like, no, I know what bad is. I've been through bad.
We know what that is. And I'm not going to say we're not all disappointed, because I'm like you. We had a joke in my family, like forever fourth. It was always fourth runner up, Tara Hooper. So,
that's where I'm like, I joke. I'm like, my friend is like, you're like the best, loser there is. They're like, you're really competitive, but it just rolls right off of you. But the more terrible things you survive, the more resilient you are. And so,
sure.
Yeah, so, my story, all of it is one of resiliency.
Yeah. And so being on a pageant stage, like, as much as you want to win the crown, and it is, and I am not going to lie, and I think you feel the same way, like it is the amazing feeling hearing your name called as the person that won. It is. I'm not gonna lie. It is an amazing feeling. But you're right. I have not won more times than I won, and you just go, you know what? I made a great friend. I grew. I know what I would do different. It was a fun week. I mean, there's so many other moving parts to it. And I give myself permission to be disappointed. And then you're like, okay, moving on. And I'm sure you're much the same way. You just go, well, moving on.
Yeah.
And that leads me to now your cancer diagnosis and subsequent survival really didn't end your
Absolutely not.
You now as a grown woman to then kind of, for the lack of a better word, suffer a little bit of another blow. So why don't you share that with me?
So I was told early on I wouldn't be able to have kids because they were removing my pituitary gland. So I wouldn't make any of those hormones. And as a teenager, that was the furthest thing from my mind. So it wasn't a problem. Until I'm in my later 20s. I would say, I do things late in life. I didn't get married till I was 29, but my friends are getting married and having kids, and people are asking me more. It's like, well, when are you guys going to have kids? And it really bothered me a lot. So I have infertility. I knew I would never have my own kids, and so that, like, where that kind of kicked me, I'll say, when I was down a little bit, is that I have faith in God. I'm a Christian, and there's a lot of scriptures about motherhood, and in my head, it's like, it's this wonderful gift, and it's hard not to think sometimes, maybe I can't have kids because I can't be trusted to have kids. And that it's been a battle a little bit. And I'm like, or maybe I just would be a terrible mom. And so I've worked in and out of that train of thought. And then we had settled on wanting to adopt, and we worked with a couple of different agencies after we got to Texas, and were rejected because of my medical problems. Because I'm on a treatment plan for the rest of my life, but there's complications due to that treatment plan that technically I still have a terminal diagnosis. I ignore that a little bit, but what I was told is we could foster, and then we could foster to adopt, which it didn't all make sense in my head of why they would let us do that, but they wouldn't let us adopt. So we started, we prayed about it for years though. This was not a quick decision, and getting approval for the process is definitely not a quick decision, but we decided we would foster. And we got through all of the process, and wouldn't you know it, we got licensed 1 month into a global pandemic. So
the hits just keep on coming. The hits just keep on coming.
Yeah. So we're already making adjustments to that new life. And then we get an email of, hey, we've licensed you, so you'll get a call any day. And the first thing that happened on a late Friday night is I got a text message of, we've got a 2-year-old that we need to place in a half an hour. Can we bring him to your house? And I'm like, oh my, it's so overwhelming. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this information. And we didn't, it was just this whirlwind of getting all set up, because in my head, I thought we would end up with older kids. I'm like, we need to get like a crib and get all set up. But so, it's like, we're trying to learn how to be parents in a pandemic where we can't leave the house.
And it's like, I mean, I have 2 children of my own, and I think there's a reason why you're pregnant for 9 months, is because you kind of have to learn what the heck you're doing. So
yeah.
And I've gone through 2-year-old stages, and holy moly, I think that's probably the most difficult, because they're super mobile and they get into everything. And I can't imagine going, okay, here you go. Yep.
And that's where, like, my friends, they've all had their kids one at a time, and we've been called and asked, it's like, will you take a sibling set of 3?
Wow.
And going like none to 3, I'm like, oh, that's different. So it's all a shock to the system and an emotional roller coaster. So it just builds on the resiliency.
You're like that. There was a reason I learned how to be resilient. Now, are you currently fostering these children right now?
We, our most recent placement just went to an adoptive home last week. And so, because he had other siblings, and because of the ages, the number of siblings and their special needs, we weren't equipped to have all of them. But what is really cool is we've gotten to be friends with the adoptive parents, and we are the aunt and uncle, and we get to stay in the picture. And it's another group that I'm part of where you build these incredible relationships. So it's been a really big blessing in our life.
Oh, I love that. And how is your husband, how has this affected your marriage? Like, I mean, obviously he wasn't around
Yeah.
when you were first diagnosed with cancer, but obviously dating, engagement, I mean, that's part of your, like you said, you have this terminal diagnosis, or this.
Yeah. And it's, so knowing, I was, pretty upfront from the beginning of, hey, I can't have kids, because we were, I'll say, like, older, but to me it seems ridiculous saying that now. We were in our late 20s, but it's just something where I'm like, there's, people that they want their own kids, and that's fine. And so I got to where I'm like, I'm pretty upfront about it. And he was really good with that. Never really had an issue. He was all on board for adopting. And so that was great, being like having that kind of support. We both, I would say, were nervous for fostering or adopting. There was a lot of discussions about, but you don't know what, you don't know what you're getting. And then I would look at my mind and I'm like, yeah, you don't know what you're getting ever. So,
yeah, even with biological children, I don't think you know what you're.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, and that's what I had to remember, is I'm like, okay, everybody that I know that has biological children is still surprised at what they got.
So it's all over the board, for sure.
Yes, for sure. And so we made that decision together. I definitely wanted us both to be on board, because being a project manager, I tend to take on projects, and I didn't want fostering to be like, oh, this is one of April's like projects. So I'm like, nope, we definitely got to be on the same page about it.
You're in or you're not. Like that same with like you're kind of either in or you're not, because I don't think you can only kind of have kids. It's
exactly. And it, like, I won't lie, it's an emotional roller coaster in the whole the process of getting custody. And we've had a couple of placements, so we've had a couple of experiences. We're still pretty new, but there's dealing with the bio parents and all, so there's a lot of trauma there. And then all of the aspects of, we've got, a million different caseworkers that we need to stay in touch with, and working with CPS and working with other siblings and their foster parents. And so there is a lot to it, and none of it is easy, but definitely it's worth it. Especially the first time, our most recent placement we got from the NICU, he was a baby, and we got to be the first people to see him smile. I got to be the first one to ever hold him. The day I got custody was the day the NICU opened for visitors. So I got to be the first person to hold him, the first one to hear him laugh. I'm pretty sure I got him to start saying mama right before we had to give him to his adoptive family. But
what is that for you though? Like, so like you said, you're like, I was the first one to hold him. Share with our viewers, what is that like then, to say, now I've got to hand you over to someone else?
So it's so emotional, because what I really did not want to do is start getting detached. I want to be all in and be attached because I think that's what children deserve. They deserve the love and the safety and everything that comes from that. And it might be easier to like protect myself and my feelings if I start detaching myself, but I know like they don't deserve that. They deserve the best. And I'm the adult in the situation. So I'm like, I will deal with my feelings. And a lot of it, dealing with it is talking to other people that are going through it. I had a breakdown at the adoptive family's house when the physical, like giving the baby away was really hard. And their parents were there though, and immediately like embraced me and made me feel so much better. And like, we're all in this together. And so that was really helpful. And just, again, it kind of goes back to having your support group of people that they've been through this experience too, and they know how difficult it is. And so we were really sad for a few days. And this was all like right before the pageant. So normally I'd be really excited for pageant weekend. But I'm like, also a little piece of my heart just got ripped out, and it's hard to get excited about a pageant when I had this going on as well. But yeah, so it's all really emotional, but everyone I know that's done it will attest to how worth it is. So,
do you give or would you tell someone like give yourself permission to kind of mourn over that loss?
yes.
I mean, like I have three foster failed dogs. So, and I know, and I'm not trying to compare a dog or an animal to a human baby. That's not what I mean. But I mean, I get like just the emotional attachment of my four-legged little furry baby, and I couldn't imagine, like, that's why it's a joke in our family, like, don't bring an animal over here because they're going to end up staying, like, because my heart
totally get that.
I know, because you have your dog party. I can't imagine the resiliency and the strength that it takes for you then to say, I have loved on this baby, I have nurtured and taken care of it, even if it's only a short period of time. Like you said, you've created this bond, and then you have to selflessly say, now it's time to place you in this other place that I believe might be better for you.
Yeah.
What do you tell women that are going through this, and what do you tell yourself?
I give myself permission to cry about it, first of all. I had always been, I would say, or I wanted to be really stoic. Growing up, I thought crying was a weakness. And so I had to get to a point where I'm like, this is probably the most productive thing I could do for myself, or the most help is let myself cry about it and get it out instead of trying to bottle it up, because that never leads anywhere good. And I also go back to, it's the kind of experience where talking to a counselor that can be really helpful. Having somebody, I'm part of 3 online support groups for foster parents. And so like one for Texas, one for the whole country. And so that's really helpful, knowing that I can jump on there, but also talking with the adoptive parents. They had placements where that went away. And so they'd been through the same thing too, and they understood, and they were willing to cry with us. And so I kind of go back to, I think it's all about support from people that understand and can empathize. And even all my friends that knew, like they knew the day that we had to give the baby away. And so I had friends calling to check on us to see how we're doing and offering meals. And so it takes effort to reach out and tell people what's going on. But the support is great and really beneficial. And that's what keeps me from going crazy. So.
And we'll be putting those resources in the comment section for anybody out there that's either currently fostering or looking to foster.
Yeah.
or even someone who's gone through or going through cancer, either themselves or maybe they have a child that's going through it. We're going to put April's information in the comment section. And I want to encourage any of our listeners out there while April and I continue to talk. If you have any comments or questions, I'm monitoring it, and I'd be happy to relay that to April if you want to answer or have any questions in real time. I also ask any of you out there listening to share our interview on your personal pages or set it out there, because I do believe there's a lot of people that have got, have either gone through infertility, and now fostering is definitely a route that they might go, and or cancer as well. I think I mean, I can count on multiple hands, toes, and all that of how many people I know that have gone through cancer, not as much as a child or with children, but definitely as adults. So please share this interview and make any comments. April, I'm going to back up a little bit. When you were first dating, I know you said your husband now was very understanding when you started dating, but did you ever run across a man or a guy that you started dating that conversation didn't go well?
Yes, which is why I got really, I didn't date a lot because I was like so focused on wanting to, finish school and start a career. But there were a couple of people I had dated that did not like that I couldn't have kids. And I thought it would be weird to bring something like that up early on in dating. And so I was hurt when things ended, and that's why they ended. And me, I'm like, I'm still the same person. I didn't do anything wrong. So then I kind of got into my train of thought was, okay, I'm bringing this up on, day one, and we'll see if they stick around. It wasn't day one, but.
Hey, can I get some extra bruschetta? And by the way.
Yeah, it kind of, a little bit. But yeah, it was heartbreaking, especially, when you're in your early 20s, and I would say I was still awkward, having gone through the teenage years that I experienced. But yeah, and having somebody break up with me because of something completely outside of my control, and I would say it made me also wary, where I'm like, well, I don't know that I want to go through this again, so maybe I just won't date. So yeah, it was.
How did you meet your husband? Like, how did you end up meeting him?
So I think we've got a kind of a good story. Where I currently work, I've been with this company, and they're Alaska based, but I've been there almost 13 years. And his dad is actually the one that hired me. My husband worked there also. And so his dad had the same job that I have now, and I was hired to be his assistant. But so I ended up meeting my husband the first day at work. I will say, because it's kind of a joke now, I was not a fan of his when we worked together. We didn't work together a lot, but in the office, I just wasn't a real big fan. He ended up moving on to another company, and right before he went to another company, we actually worked on a project together and got to be friends. And so we ended up being friends. But at some point it was like, we're friends that we hang out every single weekend. It was just kind of expected. And then it's like, well, we hang out during the week a lot, and people started calling me his girlfriend, but I'm like, no, we just hang out a lot. Right. So I was a little oblivious, I'll say.
Okay, you're kind of cool.
But yeah, it was there. I think my screen froze.
Oh no, we froze. Are you still there?
Okay, I can see you, hear you now. Sorry, the screen froze there. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it looks like we may have lost our connection. Let's see. Yeah, it says live video has ended. Let's see if I can pop back on. Where's my Zoom? Let's see if we can pop back on. Well, it says live on Facebook. All right, well, let's pop back on Facebook and see what's going on. I don't know. Can't tell if we're still live or not.
I know it says live on Facebook on my end, but
let's see. No.
Hold on.
Nope.
Here goes nothing.
Nope, that's not it. I'm not sure if we're still live or not.
Now we'll hop back on.
Yeah, I can't tell. It says the live videos ended. So, are you still there?
Okay.
Yeah, mine says I'm still here, but there's something going on with the audio.
On there. Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me go to the view gallery. There we go. That's why. Okay. All right.
I'm going to just stop it and I'm going to go live on Facebook again. Hold on. We're just going to hop back on. Are you still there with me?
I'm still here.
We're just going to go part 2. We're just going to hop on. Well, it's 45 minutes, but it just cut out for somebody. I don't know if I lost the connection. Public. All right, I'm going to go back live. It's a storm and all this yucky weather. Let's see where we're at. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Are we here? I don't see us. Do you? Oh, there we are. All right, we're back.
Are we good?
I think so.
Okay.
We're back. Sorry, guys.
It's like an intermission.
We've been yip-yapping and we got cut off. I don't know. Technology stinks. I think it's because of it's a little stormy here in Dallas. Anyway, so you were saying with your husband, you were like,
Yeah. We met at work. It wasn't like, it was a few years in before we worked on a project together, and I really got to know him and became friends. And then it was like, we're friends that we hang out like every weekend. And from there, it was like, we kind of hang out almost every day of the week now. I think we're more than friends. So, all of his friends were saying I was his girlfriend, and I'm like, no, we just hang out a lot. So I was a little oblivious to what was happening.
Of course, because you're like, I don't want my heart broken again. Well, we've been talking for a while, and we kind of got interrupted. So I'm going to remind my guests that the big chunk of this interview is on my page. My personal page, and I will tag April, and we'll also put all those resources, and she will also share the big chunk of our interview. But you know what, April, let's any last comments, words of advice, tools, just
my main advice and tool for pretty much every situation, honestly, is finding your support network, really finding people that have been through your experience. That's one of the reasons I helped create an online support group for people with brain tumors and or cancer. And it's mostly patients, but some of them are their support people. And it kind of started as a forum for people to find others that had a similar diagnosis and find out, hey, what was their experience like? And it still is, but this is the most physical and probably emotionally painful experience most of us had ever been through. And so one event, like they're having an extremely painful day, and they need to vent, and they know when they're venting to us that every single one of us understands. And so there's so much power in healing from something really terrible and traumatic like that when you have a group of other people that can, say, I understand. I've been through something similar, and they just understand.
And is there anything you would tell them not to do? You know, we're always so full of like, here's what you should do, but like, what would you tell someone not to do?
I really try to help people not to look for acceptance outside of themselves, that if they're looking for acceptance on a way that they're doing anything, from their partner, children, parents, anybody, they'll probably drive themselves crazy, that they don't need to be accepted by everybody or anybody, that they need to do what they need to do to survive and hopefully thrive from their experience.
And I would say probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but also don't wallow in it. Like you said, like don't stay isolated. Don't
Mm-hmm.
try and tackle big things like this all by yourself.
Yeah.
I think that seems like such a big part of your message, is that outreach and connecting to your community is such a crucial part of healing, survival, understanding, grief, joy, like all it seems like all of those emotions, all of those things kind of are wrapped up, it sounds like, in this.
And that might be the hardest part. The asking for help or support might be the hardest part. It's not as physically painful, but it might, if you don't have a lot of experience doing it, and I didn't know what it looked like to ask anybody for help at some point. And so that can be, I'll say, being that vulnerable is harder sometimes than the physical pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, any last thoughts for our audience?
No, I am welcome. Like if anybody has questions and, or want some follow-up, I'm available. Feel free to hit me up. I just, I love connecting with my other pageant contestants and everybody else. And I just really appreciate this time.
Me too. I loved hearing your story and learning more about you. I can't believe just the ups and downs and the transformation.
It wasn't unicorns and rainbows, I promise.
I wasn't. It's so funny. I tell all my guests that, I'm like, okay, because I was talking to April prior to hopping on. I'm like, are we okay at talking about this? Like, I wanted to know, why are you fostering? Is it because you couldn't have children? She's like, yeah, I'm okay talking about that, because I don't want this to be all like unicorns and rainbows and sparkly tiaras. I mean, yeah, we wear sparkly tiaras, but we use it for a purpose. And I want people to see the real raw part of us, like as being, women, as pageant contestants, as wives, as women who have gone through you've gone through some pretty heavy stuff. I mean, from being diagnosed with brain cancer, but being told first. So for those of you just coming on, my recap with April was, she's ill. They can't find anything wrong with her. They're literally telling her at 14 years old, as a teenager, there's nothing wrong with you. It's in your head. To finally getting a diagnosis of, you have cancer and have possibly a very short time to live on this earth, to healing from that through a pretty traumatic way, through surgeries and a year and a half of your life basically in recovery, to then finding out as an adult you're not going to be able to have your own biological children, then going through the process of you can't adopt because of medical history, to then fostering and doing this amazing thing, only to have times where you're getting heartbroken because then you have to then place that child in a permanent home for a multitude of, that is one hell of a story. April, I think you need to write a book.
I've heard that before. Somebody has recommended either write a book or make a movie.
Seriously, I'm in awe of you. And the fact that, I think I might have even been around right after you had given up that baby. And, you were your chipper, kind, sweet, loving, you wouldn't have thought that there was anything wrong in your world. And so ladies, if you are out there and you're suffering or you have heartache or, look at a woman like April. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There really is. And her suggestion to you is don't hesitate to reach out, find your community, find your people, talk about it. Don't go at it alone. For April, she's also a woman of faith. So for those of you, I don't know, April, if you have a piece of script, I know you mentioned a scripture that I don't want to like call you out.
No, but the mantra that I wake up with is count your blessings, and that goes through my head several times a day. I know how fast things can be taken away, or we can lose them, and I know what severe pain and trauma looks like, and so I don't want to take anything for granted.
Yes, and you know what? From the looks of it, nobody has knocked the sparkle off of your tiara, my dear. Like you are.
This tiara comes with a lot of baggage. Like my friends and family will attest to that. But I'm still rocking it.
Yeah, and I mean you are the epitome of like what the Crown Effect is about, and it's revealed on women now, and women like you, and women all over the country. Ladies, don't go at this alone. Whether you reach out to me or April or anyone, know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you. Listen to April's story. For those of you that missed the earlier part of our interview before we got cut off, go back and listen to that Facebook Live. Hear her story, and just know that I promise you that there are women and people out there that will support you through whatever your journey is and whatever you're going on in life. So, April, any last words for our listeners?
I just appreciate everybody that got to hear this, and I appreciate what you're doing to help other women. And that I actually got asked in my last pageant interview a couple of weeks ago, a judge asked, how do you stay confident every day? And I was like, I'm not confident every day, and you don't have to be. But a lot like confidence looks like resilience for me. And there'll be ups and downs. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be 100% all the time. That's not realistic.
Oh no. I always laugh because people are like, oh, are you always like, I'm like, no, girl, like I'm either like,
yeah.
Like you cannot be, I don't think anyone can be confident 100% of the time, but what we don't want, and my whole purpose here is that one, I don't want people to sabotage and take that confidence from you. And I want to give you inspirational stories, inspirational women and examples, and any tools or resources that I have at my disposal to help you build on that confidence so that you can create the success in your life that you've always dreamed at, and know that you have the support that you need to be just the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like. I want every woman to be empowered with that. There's too many things out there that does knock the sparkle off of our crowns. And ladies, you all have, even if you're not wearing tiaras like this, ladies, you all have your invisible tiaras on. And so I don't want anyone to knock the sparkle off. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The Crown Effect. April, it was such an honor and privilege to have you on. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome. I'll see you later.
Bye. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. And end. Stop live stream.